Hey, what's up? So I've written a novel about AI called The Mandate of Athena. There's 5 chapters in it, and it's basically a forward-looking perspective on how AI can change the world, how it can improve things, and how it will just lead to a lot of changes in the next couple of years. I've wanted to write a novel for ages. I've finally done it. You can read it online and on Twitter. All the links are in the description of the video. But I thought I'd take the opportunity this morning to record a little bit of an audiobook, read the first chapter. It's a bit of marketing. It's a bit of just entertainment. So yeah, hope you enjoy it, and let me get started. So this is The Mandate of Athena, a novel about AI, chapter 1. The title reads, Jobless in Gotham, Xavier's Quest for a Paycheck, or 2. Xavier's Portfolio Pandemonium, a comedy of errors in the job hunt. Xavier's Job Safari, hunting for employment in the urban jungle. Xavier looked away from the job listing with disgust and took a pull from his vape for the 4th time in 10 minutes. He glanced around the small room he was hunched up in, a square barely big enough to fit his single bed, small desk, and huge pile of textbooks piled on top of one another, a testament to his commitment to his college degree that was now giving him nothing but angst as he searched for a job. He squinted at the textbooks and could see the titles mocking him in the dark: An Introduction to Business, Business Management 101, Advanced Management and Administration, all seemingly useless in helping him secure even a modest job to pay for his admittedly frugal lifestyle. He had done well in college, studying hard and getting good grades, partying sparingly and focusing on his self-development. But it wasn't looking like such a good trade down the line. He should have got fucked up more often. It wasn't as if there were no jobs. There were tons of senior management, senior accounting and auditing positions, experienced developers needed for new business systems, and veteran middle manager positions. They all presented themselves to him on his dimly glowing laptop screen, inviting him to apply with the 10 years of experience he did not have. Being a new grad these days was hard as fuck. He hadn't yet considered changing industries and going into farming or computer science. He knew there were tons of jobs in those industries, but they too skewed towards experience, and he didn't even want to think about the upskilling he would need to do to become semi-competent in programming or farming machinery maintenance. At least he knew business, and he hated farms. Xavier's old iPhone 17 buzzed, and ignoring the cracked edge of the screen that partially obstructed the top right corner and made the time hard to read, he glanced at the group chat messages his friends from college had sent in the intervening time since he'd last checked his phone 3 minutes ago. He snorted at a sports meme, wondered at his friend's mental state who'd sent it, and typed out a witty reply. When he sent it, he noticed the time and sighed when he realized he'd been at his laptop scrolling through job listings for 2 hours now, already past midnight. He stood up, took a long pull of his vape, and then threw it on his bed as he walked past to the bathroom to brush his teeth. He studied his face in the smudged mirror while he brushed his teeth and decided he'd shave in the morning. He had grown out his beard since the internship he had done immediately after college, just some generic junior business management role at a firm across the city that had not materialized into a full-time job that required him to be freshly shaven every day. It had been an okay job in that it had at least given him a few months of savings to rely on, but he reckoned that if he was going to go for any sort of job interviews soon, he should at least be physically prepared. He finished up in the bathroom and then flicked the light off as he pulled off his clothes and flopped down onto his bed. He dug out his vape from where it was digging into his back and exchanged it with his phone's place on his desk. He spent a while scrolling Instagram and seeing what various friends, celebrities, and unhinged strangers had been up to while he was scrolling through bland job listings. Eventually, he switched the screen off and turned onto his side, his mind dully turning over the important challenge he faced in finding a job before he ran out of money in a month or 2 and had to beg his dad to move back home with him, as well as the less important task of finding the name of that beautiful blonde celebrity that had popped up on his feed between friends' posts and comedy videos. There was always the chance that she was AI generated, but if she wasn't, he definitely ought to find out her name. The next day arrived with a flood of notifications on his laptop that all heralded the rejection of previous job applications and empty sentiments of regret that he did not meet their hiring criteria. He deleted them all and made himself a coffee. He spent an hour or 2 glancing across the Facebook ad campaign he had designed the previous day for a friend's mom's chiropractic practice and, satisfied, activated it and sent her a message informing her. He had been doing odd marketing and advertising jobs whenever he could get them since he finished college, since he had basic marketing and advertising skills from one of his college courses. But it was hard to compete with large digital agencies and platforms that could do a lot for you with technology and AI or something else he didn't quite understand. But he had done a few jobs for friends and friends' parents, and he had made some cash off of it, which was great. It extended his financial runway a month or two and made him feel somewhat more successful than his inbox of rejection letters did. Midday rolled around, and after realizing he didn't want to eat reheated sausages for the third meal in a row, he grabbed his jacket and headed out to get some takeout and fresh air. He hadn't really left the apartment since he'd been to a friend's birthday the previous weekend. While on the train downtown, he popped in his earphones and listened to 10 minutes of a business podcast. When he had to rewind it for the third time because he'd missed what the host said over the din of the train, he gave up and turned on some lo-fi music instead and amused himself by studying the other passengers on the train. Most were on their phones, either typing out messages with both thumbs or scrolling vertically through the output of some nebulous algorithm serving up fresh content. A few people stared out of the train's windows, their heads bobbing to unheard music piped in through earphones, and a few people had on small VR headsets and moved their heads around and manipulated invisible interfaces. Xavier studied these people for longer and wondered what they were looking at or working on. He had used the Apple Vision 2 and thought it was really cool and a great way to use a computer more naturally than hunched over a laptop, but he didn't really have a need for it with his lack of a job, and of course couldn't really justify buying it with his few remaining months of financial runway. A guy of similar age to him wearing a suit and a rose gold Apple Vision Pro 3 got off ahead of Xavier on his stop and walked purposefully up the escalator, weaving around people in his way and manipulating his invisible environment the entire time, and occasionally talking in short bursts to what Xavier assumed must be the people sharing his virtual environment with him. No one batted an eye at the strange spectacle, and Xavier followed the guy up the escalator, wondering jealously what he did that he could afford such a headset and that required him to wear a suit. He followed him until the train station exit when the guy turned left and Xavier turned right and made his way down the street, heading for the park and the free Wi-Fi there. He stopped at his favorite Chinese restaurant on the way and held the door open for a delivery driver with 3 large packets balanced between his arms and his phone perched precariously on top of the stack. He nodded at Xavier as he came through and headed towards his bike parked outside. "Hey Sarah, how you doing?" he said, raising his hand in greeting to the middle-aged Chinese woman behind the counter. "I'm all right, and you, Xavier?" she replied. "Yeah, fine, just still working and doing my best." He could taste the monotony of his answers as they passed over his lips, and he thought of something else interesting to say. What's new with you guys?" he asked as he racked his brains for more interesting conversation material with the woman he had ordered food from and chatted with over a dozen times in the last month. "We are fine, thanks. So the shop is doing well this month, and we are opening a new location across the city soon." "Oh, that's great. Where?" "There by the business district. There's a new food court there that's just opened, and the rent is cheap, and there are a lot of people who eat lunch out every day." "Oh, that's awesome. Congratulations," he said as she nodded. Unable to come up with anything more interesting, he placed his order for beef noodles and, as he paid, noticed Sarah's young son, who sat in a corner behind the counter, a cheap headset over his eyes, and thoroughly engrossed in his digital realm. Everyone seemed to have a headset these days. He gestured at the boy, who couldn't have been more than 8, and asked, "Cool headset. Is that for games?" Sarah looked back at her son and shook her head. "No, it is for school. They have so many educational apps and games that they use at the school. He loves it though. He never wants to take it off." She frowned at this and then added, "But it is okay. His maths and English has gotten so much better in just the last 3 months since they started using it, so I am okay with it. But he has to do at least an hour of outside play every day, else I worry he will never take it off and become addicted." Xavier looked at the boy again and nodded. "Well, if it helps, that's great. We'll all need to probably learn how to use them soon if we want to get new jobs." His own situation presented itself to him, and he pushed it to the back of his mind as he paid and made more small talk with Sarah before his food was ready and he left for the park. He sat for an hour or so in the park as he ate his beef noodles and applied to a few more jobs on his phone. He doubted he qualified for all of them. Lots required years of experience or familiarity with business software that he did not have. But the jobs that had suited him perfectly so far had all rejected him. So he persisted while a group of kids kicked a soccer ball in the distance and joggers lumbered up the path on the small hill he sat on. He got distracted a few times by his phone, and only after his vape ran out did he realize he had been in the park for 3 hours already. The people hurrying through in work clothes and a larger number of joggers should have given him an indication, but he had been enjoying himself being outside for a change. Maybe he should get one of those headsets and work properly in the sun all the time. He packed up and headed towards the train station. While edging around a particularly loud confrontation between a woman in a smart suit and what looked to be a dog walker walking 16 dogs, Xavier's phone buzzed and he glanced down on it to see a message from his college friend Max asking if he wanted to have pizza that night. He responded in the affirmative and promptly arrived at the train station, where he took an alternative train to the one that would take him home, and 23 minutes later was knocking on the door of a trendy apartment in a much more expensive neighborhood than his own. "What's up, bro?" Max said as he opened the door with one hand and reached out for a bro handshake. "Nah, all good, and you? Thanks for the invite. I was just heading home from the park, so you called me at just the right time." "Of course, man. It's been a long week and I didn't feel like eating dinner alone." They stepped into Max's apartment, and a simple but sophisticated ambiance graced Xavier's eyes. A desk stood in the corner of the living room, a huge 32-inch 4K screen dominating the surface, playing music in one window, showing nebulous code in another, and what looked to be a terminal window scrolling through lines of updates in another smaller one. Max was a software developer at a large corporate in the center of the business district, and he looked like he'd been working from home today, given his combination of pajama pants and golf shirt. "So what's new with you?" Max asked as they sat down on the long black couch, the only other piece of furniture in the room besides the desk and a long kitchen counter. "The last time I saw you was at Ronnie's birthday party, and you seemed pretty stressed out about finding a job." Xavier faced the open window that overlooked the adjacent street and building. Soft jazz emanated from Max's computer as he replied. "Yeah, man, it's going okay. Just applying and applying and applying without any luck yet. Everyone wants like 10 years of experience, and the junior roles are so competitive I haven't even had an interview yet." "You're still just applying for business roles, right? Management, business improvement, admin, marketing, that sort of shit, right?" "Yeah." "Yeah, it's tough out there. You know, I only got my job because I interned here, and then they liked my portfolio." He paused and gazed out the window a bit. "I know it's harder with like business and that, but you don't have a portfolio, do you?" "What, like a CV?" No, like a showcase of your work or projects. For instance, I've got a website showing all the projects I've built, websites I've made, and things I've coded, or rather prompted," he said and laughed. Xavier smiled and wondered how much of Max's job was actually coding and how much was just asking AI to do it for him. "I mean, I run Facebook ads for those odd marketing jobs I've been doing and have like a LinkedIn page, but not much besides that, no. How would I make a portfolio for like showing I have business skills?" Max said as he fished out a vape and took a long pull and offered it to Xavier. "I think you just need to market yourself better, you know? Like build a bit of a portfolio that demonstrates some of the skills you learned in college and have developed since. Just something to separate you from the crowd and show you are actually worth employing." "No offense, man." "None taken," Xavier said as he passed the vape back. "I don't know if I'd employ me right now either." They laughed at that and lapsed into brief silence while Max got up to grab drinks from his fridge. "So what I think you should do is like make a small website, VR experience, video, anything really that shows off your business skills. Like invent a fake business and show all the finances, reports, business improvement suggestions. What's that thing you do to show when a new business or product is maybe worth it? Case study, business analysis, cost-benefit analysis? That's the one," Max said as he reached into the fridge. "Build up a huge beer or Coke?" he asked, looking over at Xavier. "You know the correct answer to that question," Xavier said dryly. Max let out a breath of air in a half scoff, half laugh, and grabbed 2 beers before continuing. "Back to your portfolio. Just something like a giant case study, but make it pretty and believable and similar to what you would actually do in a real business." He handed Xavier a beer and they raised their bottles. "Cheers, thanks." "Cheers." Xavier paused. "I mean, it sounds like a good idea, and I probably should have done it a while ago, but that sounds like a huge amount of work and might not even help me get a job. I mean, you are kind of unemployed, right?" They laughed, and Xavier admitted that he didn't have anything better to do. They sipped their beers and chatted a bit more about Xavier's portfolio and Max's job. It sounded like he really enjoyed it and got a lot of help from his seniors, which was very helpful. Max was explaining how they used AI to help them build systems faster and sometimes even autonomously when he asked Xavier if he was using AI in his work. "I mean, I use ChatGPT a lot for like marketing copy, writing reports and that. I know it can create images too, and I use it sometimes, but it's still a lot of work. You really should look into using it more, man. It will fundamentally change your life. Here, let me show you." Max stood up and grabbed his laptop from his desk, disconnecting it from the monitor and bringing it over to the couch where he balanced it on his knees and started moving windows around. He mumbled to himself for a bit and then turned the screen to Xavier. So look here, this is my IDE where we write code for websites or robots or whatever. He moved his cursor over to a host of unintelligible commands in different colors that Xavier didn't understand. He nodded though, eager to see how Max thought he could improve his situation. And all of this is AI generated. I didn't write these 62 lines of code here. I just instructed a really powerful LLM to write them for me based on what I need. LLM is like ChatGPT, right? Large language model. Yeah, ChatGPT is an LLM. Okay, so the point is I didn't write this code. I just prompted it. I occasionally have to write code and have to understand it in order to make sure it's correct and works as intended, but I'm more of a management role, just delegating the work to the LLM and then approving its output, right? Okay, makes sense. Cool. So this is not just for writing code. There are programs that use LLMs to do all sorts of things, generate entire websites, make pretty marketing images, look through financial statements, makes graphs and reports, all these things. If you look around the internet, you'll find them. How's this different to just asking ChatGPT to do it and then getting the instructions on how to do it? Not helpful, Xavier said as he leaned back into the couch. The difference now is that, unlike the early GPT-4 and similar models, is that now the LLMs are plugged into so many other software and tools. Like, you can use a Boston Dynamics robot just by talking to it and giving it commands, and it translates your voice into movement commands for the robot. Or in your case, you can give a design tool a long description and case study and then get it to spit out a big branded ad campaign with all the images and files generated. I actually can't believe you're still doing it manually, actually. Xavier nodded, slightly embarrassed and annoyed at his laziness for not figuring out how these new technologies worked earlier. Yeah, me too. Is this how everyone is working these days? Everyone who wants to get ahead and make big money, yeah, probably. Max closed his laptop and returned it to the desk where he stood stretching. That's probably why you're having such a hard time with the job search. Everyone is hesitant to hire a junior employee when a senior employee with an AI assistant can do the work of like 4 juniors. But if you can show you can use the new AI tools to be productive and better than just someone without the tools, I'm sure you can land something, bro. Well, that makes me feel a bit better, but I'll still need to see if I can do it like you said, with a portfolio and everything. Yeah, but I'm sure you can do it, bro. Just have to work at it and do your research. You can message me if you need help with the technical stuff or want an opinion. Thanks, bro. I think I will do that. They moved on to chatting about the birthday party the previous weekend. Max's girlfriend, who was visiting her mom's house for the week, and the crewed SpaceX Mars mission that was supposed to launch the previous January but had been delayed due to some problem with the paperwork of launching starships from Florida over the 2028 New Year or something stupid. Xavier ordered them pizzas later, and they sat on the floor, looking out the window, talking about girls and reminiscing about college days. The sun had set a long time ago, but streaks of purple pierced the darkening sky high above them, and the pizza delivery drone seemed to emerge out of the darkness when it arrived. They heard it coming, and Max stood up to grab the pizza out of the collection slot at the bottom of the drone when it stopped and hovered in front of them, and Xavier felt the wind tussle his hair as the rotors on the front side of the drone whirred to account for the weight change. It was a super cool advantage to living in the middle of the city that you could sometimes get drone delivery, and he felt like he was living in the future whenever his packages or food came flying towards him. The drone sped away, and Xavier felt a pleasant buzz from the now 3rd beer he was cradling, combined with a triple meat pizza. When it was after 10, Max said he had to go to bed soon to get up early for an in-person workday the next day, so Xavier gathered up the empty beer bottles and pizza box to throw away on his way out of the building. He wished his friend good night, thanking him for the advice on his portfolio and job search, and made his way out of the building, depositing the trash in the receptacle. He headed towards the train station, thinking all the while about his job search and feeling a slightly renewed sense of hopefulness. His sense of purposefulness lasted the entire bumpy and nearly empty train trip to his stop, and all the way on his walk to his building and up the stairs to his apartment. He had intended to go straight to bed when he got home, still slightly buzzed as he was and tired from staying up late the previous night, but Max's advice and the nagging financial stress he felt constantly at the back of his mind propelled him towards his desk and his laptop, which he switched on with a flick of his fingers. After opening a new browser window, he began to research the different tools he could maybe use to build a portfolio, and after 30 minutes, started to get the sense that everything was using AI now, and everything was getting automated. There was a website that could generate financial reports from a list of bank statements, a tool for setting up spreadsheets from just a few sentences of instructions, advertisements that supposedly claimed to be able to automate entire CEO duties if you could just pass it enough information about your business, and an app for creating images and short TikTok-length videos from voice notes. That last one wouldn't be so useful since TikTok had been banned in several countries years ago and VR was starting to get more popular now, but he filed it away in his bookmarks folder in case he needed it later. He went as far as to ask ChatGPT for advice on what he should do to improve his job search and how he could build an impressive portfolio. The advice he got back was pretty generic, but when he prompted it to give him specific examples of things he could include in his portfolio, it suggested case studies, financial analysis projects, as well as business plans and marketing campaigns that weren't half bad ideas. He resolved to work on his portfolio more in the morning and went to brush his teeth, but looked at his beard in the mirror mid-brush and decided he looked severely unemployed, and since he was so job bereft, he might as well stay up late and work on the portfolio. He owed it to his future self, he reasoned. Returning to his laptop, he began to get the beginnings of what he thought was a good idea for a fake business he could base his portfolio around, and he began to write a background on it before he paused and then tabbed over to ChatGPT and began a conversation to flesh out the details of the fake company. The fake business was a food packaging company that manufactured frozen pizzas, an idea he got from the drone-delivered pizza he and Max had devoured earlier. He went back and forth a few times with the chat window and then made some wording changes and then pasted it into a new document. He repeated the process then with some marketing images and even a small video with a voiceover he had generated from a summary of his document so far. He smiled as it started to take shape. When he woke up an hour later with a stabbing pain in his neck from how it was bent against his arms on his desk, he stood up and stumbled over to his bed, rubbing his forehead from where a mark had been pressed into it from his keyboard. He dropped onto the mattress, thinking that he was happy to at least have done something productive with his work in the park and portfolio tonight. He spent the whole next day in front of the laptop, only pausing to go to the bathroom and cook 2 packets of ramen for lunch and dinner respectively. He found a cool website of historical bank statements of liquidated companies, and it took him hours to get right, but he eventually managed to make a spreadsheet outlining the expenses and investments of the business, changed to look like his fictional pizza production business. He made some nice graphs and visualizations with a tool he learned about from an AI blog, and marveled that he didn't have to code to do any of the cool things he had done since the previous evening. More tools were at his disposal than he had realized. He continued into the evening and made the portfolio start to look visually appealing, adding nice fonts, animations, and even a fake profile of himself as CEO of the pizza company. At the last minute, he included a section at the end outlining all the tools he had used to build the portfolio, along with all of the prompts, questions, and research he had done to learn how to do things. This section was actually longer than the actual portfolio, so he moved it into a separate document. When it was past 1, he eventually admitted defeat to himself and spammed the portfolio along with his document outlining how he had built it all to all of the previous job applications he had sent in the last week, including to all of the email addresses he had received rejection letters from. Fuck them if they thought it was spam, it couldn't hurt, right? A week later, as he was standing in the small convenience store in his street corner, wondering if he should stop vaping so as to extend his financial runway, his phone buzzed. He fished it out and saw an email inviting him for a job interview and mentioning his portfolio. Pounding his fist into the air in front of him in silent celebration, he let out a hushed exultation and texted Max the outcome of their pizza and beer conversation the previous week. He then grabbed 2 new bubblegum vape refills from the shelf and strode to the counter to pay, full of what he knew was temporary but very welcome bravado. Whew. And so that is chapter 1 of my novel about AI. So 5 chapters in total. They increase in technical sophistication as they go. So this first one, it's just like almost modern day AI set a few years in the future. Chapter 2 will be a lot more technical. Chapter 3 even more so. Chapter 4 and then chapter 5 is like the most science fiction stories of them all. As I wrote here on my about page on the website, if you're going to read one chapter, make it chapter 5. I'll read them in order as they kind of slot in together and then all culminate together in the last story, showing how like the narratives fit together. But yeah, I wrote this novel because I wanted to A, write like a novel and a book for a super long time, and B, also because AI and technology is moving so fast at the moment and I'm so interested in it, and I just wanted to share my passion. And I know a lot of people aren't as interested in technological development and that as others. But the technology and the models and that are being released in the near future are pretty incredible. And I think that a lot of the stuff in sci-fi books and in my own novel here is going to become a reality really soon. And so, yeah, I'll read the following chapters soon as well. Make a little audiobook series out of it on the channel. But that's the Mandate of Athena. That was chapter 1. Thank you for watching. Bye.